My Gavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. I'm Araka Galadirthan, the head of Divide and Conquer, and welcome to the final of the 10,000 subscriber tournament, Age of Empires 2 HD, the African Kingdoms special. This is the final, Melvalan and Weirkallen versus GrumpyPirate. Let's get to it. Melv is, of course, the Mayans, an archer nation, and Grumpy is the Byzantines, the beginner nation, is the words I would use to describe the Byzantines. Then the game calls them defensive, I would just call them beginner. Grumpy isn't beginner, far from it, but the Byzantines are definitely the most beginner-friendly nation. Easily. The map is Acropolis. The two enemies are over from each other, directly across from each other. There's a few relics in the middle and there's a little bit of gold. Now, GrumpyPirate is expected to win this, so place your bets. I did live final this, but I didn't advertise that I was going to live final this because I didn't want to advertise a live stream until I'd worked out all the flaws and things in the stream. And there were a great many flaws, and I've adjusted a few things. I'm going to trial it again. I'm going to test it again. I don't know when, but again, I probably won't advertise it. It'll just be something I'll test. I'll put a I don't have two screens, so I'll get a laptop and I'll watch it on the laptop and I'll do it on the main computer. Because I want to test to get the balance right, to get the stream quality good. And so it was just my first foray into doing something live on YouTube. So some of you will already know who wins. But, these two have made it to the final, which, it has to be said, is rather interesting. Because of the way that the tournament was set up, all of the groups, best players, in quotes, were all in the same grouping, so they all played each other before the end. So we had people like Dazui and Knight of the North and Alex and Grumpy, all four of them, if they all beat whoever they were going to beat, would have to play each other before the final. So there was no way that only one of those four people, was going to get to the final. And those four people are arguably the best four people who partook in the group. For example, Dazui, Knight of the North and Alex would probably all beat Melvalan quite easily. I mean, he'd put up a fight, but I think they would. And so the final really should have been between one of those players, but sadly the way that the group generator thing worked, it didn't facilitate that. But here we are. I'm pleased to have arrived at the final because, as I moaned about non-stop in yesterday's video, which for me was only about 5 minutes ago, I'm recording these back to back. I am quite done with these. I am looking forward to the break from Age of Empires. I'm very pleased that the group has all taken with Titanium Wars and Warhammer. Not for YouTube's purposes, but just so that we have something different to play. Also, I will experiment with Battle for Middle-earth, and also yesterday evening I played an extensive session of Battlefield 1, and I realised that I suck at it. I'm not very good at all. But then it also dawned on me that the game is heavily squad orientated. And so the fact that I don't talk to anyone in the game, I'm silent, totally impedes my progress and my ability to do well. And so I will probably wait on the Battlefield front until, because currently on Origin I have no friends. I don't actually know anyone that plays Battlefield 1, but I also wanted to kind of play a more modern FPS. I quite like the look of Titanfall 2, and I'm also ashamed to say that I quite like the look of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So I wanted to play something a bit more modern. And thanks to G2A, who don't endorse this video at all, I just happened to use them because I saw them on Bro Duel, I managed to get Battlefield 4 for a $5, and I thought for a $5 this game could be terrible and I won't care. So I dived in with that and I was immediately better. And I don't know why. I think it's because it's a bit more COD-y than Battlefield 1 is. Battlefield 1 seems to be an awful lot more tactical, and Lone Ranger-y style play just does not work, whereas it kind of does a bit more in Battlefield 4. Everyone is kind of grouped together, whereas in Battlefield 1, the maps are a little bit bigger, I would suggest, and it would seem more that you go around in small groups rather than as a mass army, whereas in the two games I played in 4, because I've only played about 3 games online in Battlefield 1, but the 2 rush games that I played in Battlefield 4, it certainly seemed to be that you were just constantly going as a big one mass army. So, I don't know. Either way, I'm looking forward to playing both a little more today. Today is Saturday. You're watching this on Sunday. But also, I'm looking forward to returning to normal next week. with our standard campaigns. I must also confess that I really enjoyed this week's Byzantine episode. I really enjoyed it. I would happily have gone on longer, actually. I thought it was good fun. I'm pleased that we're finally knocking back the Turks and we're starting to get new enemies. Or the Sultanate of Rum, sorry. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. Apologies, I'm just chewing a Rennies. Other indigestion relief is available. Now, back to the actual game, sorry. We've been burning through, and we've already arrived at the castle age. We're 27 minutes in. The situation is as follows. They've now reached their expansion points. And we'll go in normal speed. Grumpy has moved a town centre way up north there. He's also, if we swap and see what he can see, he's completely getting sight range right down the middle. He's built outposts covering that entire half of the map. Of course, they already know where each other are. But what we can see of Melv is that he can't see anything outside of his base at the moment. And his secondary town centre and then his military staging ground, very curiously, is going down to the southwest. Even though he knows Grumpy is over here, and therefore the oasis is the middle between them, he's building his military further away from his base than closer to Grumpy. Which I must... obviously, I'm in no position really to comment. But theoretically, I do understand the game very, very well. I just can't put it into practice. I suck at the micro, as we've seen. But hopefully you can maybe appreciate that I do understand what I should do. I just can't do it. And Grumpy, as you can see here, is putting his military staging right in between them. And as close to Melvalan as he can get without really poking the beast. But Melv's decided to build his military even further away. I don't understand what his thinking was there. And Melv, if you are watching and you have a YouTube account, then please do let me know why you opted to go there rather than putting your barracks, say, up here. I can understand why you'd build a town centre there. Yes, that's straight up, I would agree with that. Your economy is then safe. You're far from the front lines. I can appreciate that a forward town centre can be quite useful to get villagers out to build your military buildings. But in the same way that Grumpy here doesn't build one until his military is up. That is also what I would have done. And I would have put a second town centre away where it's safe. But why he then builds his military there is I don't know. But as you can see, no one rushed. Now, I don't know if this was that they agreed with one another that they would not rush. But I do also know that Grumpy shares the same hatred of rushing that I do. And he probably would agree with my sentiments from the previous video. And so he doesn't rush anyway. The only reason he builds military is to counter anyone who might rush him. Which is I really approve of Grumpy's playstyle. He probably has more troops than you earlier than you and could rush you, but he doesn't because the game is more fun at the end, especially in 1v1s. So kudos to Grumpy for that. But Melvalan also decides not to rush this time. He doesn't send in his customary 4 archers to go and pester the enemy. So he sits back. Now Grumpy has now just discovered where his secondary base is. If you swap the Fog of War back, Melvalan has no idea that there's a castle and 6 archery ranges waiting for him, or 5 archery ranges waiting for him just beyond his sight range there. Whereas if we swap over to Grumpy, Grumpy is now building even more outposts, so now his sight range comes right from this corner all the way down and across the map there. So the minute he knows that Melv's not gone anywhere near the centre, and having found this section, he knows he's over there. This game is very much as most 1v1s, this game is decided with almost one single battle. So you can wait and see what happens at the outcome of that. Both forces go up against each other and it pretty much decides the game, it has to be said. But we keep it at ×4 again, because at the minute we're just watching them all prepare, of course. Grumpy has now built another town centre at the back of his base there. He's got a second one on his hill anyway, so he's now up to 4 town centres, all getting him villagers. Melv only has the one on his Acropolis, and he's only got a second one down there. Now, watching these games as well, that's another thing that I would certainly need to improve in my game, is that more town centres is always better if you have the resources. But here comes another curious design decision. Melvalan, again, now not really knowing where Grumpy's forward staging area is, but knowing exactly where Grumpy's base is, ergo the right-hand side of the oasis, or, sorry, the right-hand side of the oasis, no ergo. He still builds his castle on the left-hand side and closer to his base, whereas ideally a castle either up here or right here would have been a better placement. to compound this issue, he then walls himself in with houses, so there's no gate, and he walls himself in with an actual wall there, meaning his army has now either got to go round the trees if they need to come and get over here, or they've got to climb the hill and come across at the side. So we'll see. But Melv is going to the Imperial Age. Grumpy is already there, but so he's only a few minutes behind, unlike me where I was a full 18 minutes behind Brassidas in our third place game. Now Melv has got quite a lot of farms. He's got a reasonable base. He's using houses again to defend himself and military at the front there. His secondary base has got some good farms, wood and gold coming up. He's got quite a nice little army going, but Grumpy's secondary military base is outrageous. He's now getting 4 barracks to support that. He's dropping houses as if they're like roadblocks. His secondary town centre's now got some farms. He's got wood cutting and gold. His 4th town centre's going hard for wood and a little bit on stone. And back at home, he doesn't actually have as many farms, I'd suggest. But in terms of resources, they're both using up everything they've got. So Melv, a little bit of extra wood, but otherwise everything else is pretty much low. Grumpy's stockpiling gold at the moment, but his food and wood are very low. And that'll be from training their forces. But Grumpy's army is almost ready to go. Now, the Mayans, of course, are an archer nation. They specialize in cheap archers. That's pretty much their whole thing. The Eagle Warrior is a very good all-round warrior, but it is completely countered by 2 units. Unit number 1 is the Champion. The Champion totally counters. This is readily available units, not unique units. The Champion readily counters the Eagle Warrior, completely counters it. Second, the Eagle Warrior is countered by the Hand Cannoneer. And of course, the Byzantines get the Hand Cannoneer because they're the jack-of-all-trades nation. And Grumpy goes for those. Now, the third unit that's solid counter to Eagle Warriors is the Cataphract, which is the unique unit of the Byzantines. So add into that the cheaper trash that the Byzantines get. And this game is so heavily in Grumpy's favour, like unbelievably heavily in Grumpy's favour. If the teams were reversed, so if Grumpy was the Mayans and Melv was the Byzantines, then I think it would be a bit more of an even contest, because Melv would have the support of his nation behind him. But at the moment, not only is Grumpy statistically more likely to win and his skill level is arguably greater than Melv's, he's also a nation who are a solid counter to Melv's nation. So it's all against Melv, but we shall see what happens. But Grumpy doing exactly as the Byzantines would do. He's getting the bulk of his army is trash because they're cheaper and they counter most things. With a one sort of solid grouping of one unique unit, of one specific unit. In this case, hand cannoneers. The Mayans, if they were to try and counter hand cannoneers, it would be numbers, is really all you've got. Numbers. Eagle Warriors do still get an innate defense against hand cannoneers because they've got high pierce armor. But the hand cannoneers get a bonus against infantry, so it kind of negates it. So really your best bet is to try and get skirmishers, and they're the counter to them. But obviously he's got his own skirmishers, which will be countering your skirmishers, and his skirmishers are cheaper, so who knows. But his Mel's army is still down in the south here. He's getting a trickle of units one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. He's got a small spattering in front of his base there. And if we swap and turn off the fog of war, Melv has no idea that Grumpy's on his way. We are at the 44th minute mark, and as yet, no one's really fought anyone. But Melv moves in at this exact moment, which is reasonably fortuitous. Or not so, as you'll see in a moment. Because as Melv's moving his army further and further away from his base, Grumpy is moving further and further towards Melv's base. So we'll keep it on the fog of war so that we know. But there we go, that's Melv's first indicator. He gets the warning horn, and he realises that there are trebuchets down at the base of the hill. And as he moves his army to counter, the Grumpy's halberdiers emerge from the gloom, and then finally Melv sees his doom as the hand cannoneers emerge and just start dropping them. Now, if there is a unit that is absolutely never advised to use against hand cannoneers, it's halberdiers. Halberdiers are just like paper in the wind to a hand cannoneer. There is no threat from them whatsoever. So the initial engagement is met, but Melvalan's support is on its way. He's got some plumed archers, he's got some crossbowmen, and he's got some onagers. Now with some good shots from the onagers, some good shots from the plumes, he might counter those hand cannoneers. If the hand cannoneers go down, then it's very even, and Melv might do it. He might be alright. But it's an if the hand cannoneers go down. But he's come in at the back, so he can take down the trebuchets with his halberdiers before anything major goes down. But his real strength is his onagers here. Onagers are a great counter for the Byzantines because the Byzantines often rely on large numbers of trash. Trash is directly countered, again, by siege equipment. The siege equipment is very costly and very difficult to use well. But this is where this turns rather ill towards Mel, because these units all get an attack and range bonus. And as you can see, Grumpy is microing his force incredibly well to make it so that the mangonels or the onagers pretty much take down no one before they go down. They get a couple of kills there on the halberdiers and they're gone. And there we are. Grumpy has now defeated Melvalan's army with virtually no losses. The absolute worst possible outcome for Melvalan here. He rushes in troops that he can, but his staging ground is miles away. I just don't understand what thinking went into that. Now I appreciate it might be very difficult for me to comment on these game players because I am worse than them. But as I say, when I'm doing these, when I record, well not as I say, but when I record these, it's from a purely devil's advocate point of view, assessing everything from a strategical point of view, not from a, oh, you're an absolute idiot, you should have done better, but from a, what's the thinking here, what's the merit behind this? Now, I would suggest that the reason he put his staging there was probably to defend his town centre, and because he thought maybe Grumpy was coming around the side. But with an absolute minimal amount of scouting from one of his spare units, he would have seen Grumpy's staging area here, his massive staging area, and he would have respec'd and moved over to counter. Now, as you can probably tell, Melvalan has lost this game. We're now just waiting for till he retires, which is why I'm now doing the assessment. So, the biggest failing, I think, from this game on Mel's part was, firstly, that he built the military staging area here before he'd even found out where Grump was. So he was hedging his bets that Grump was going to come from the south. And so, therefore, secondly, by extension, he did no scouting. Grumpy scouted originally and then indirectly by building a line of outposts, which I massively approve of. I love outposts. So he knew exactly where Melv's base was. But Melv, at no point in the game did Melv ever know that this staging area existed. Even now, as he's going down, he still doesn't know that all those buildings are there. Obviously, it doesn't mean anything to him now because he's out, but Grumpy had full tactical awareness at all points, at all stages of this game, and Melv at no point knew where Grumpy was coming from. Now, even for all of my failings, I still at least try and, when I know where my defensive points are, I then try and find out what I think the enemy's going to do, where their military's coming from. But Melv never finds out where Grump's military comes from, and I think that is probably the biggest reason why the battle is over so quickly. But Grumpy is a tactical player, and seeing that Melv went for siege equipment, Grumpy's gone for his own siege equipment. It's also very advisable just to have a few onagers or mangonels in your army. We'll go to ×4 because I'm pretty sure Melv resigns any second now. He says that he's out, good game, and then he resigns. But of course he is beaten. There's nothing really he can do now. The score is now Grumpy is a full 2 times Melv's score. The score, of course, doesn't dictate who's going to win, but it gives you a massive indicator. With the trebuchets now rattling and knocking on the doors of the sole castle that Melv got down in the south there. Now again, I would stress, obviously Melv beat me, and Melv beat me fair and square, unlike the Brassidas sneaky rush tactics. Melv beat me by just being better than me, and so Melv is better than me, but I just want to, for your benefit, assess why this is perhaps not the best idea, and why showing why scouting in this game totally, I would suggest, lost Melv the game. Now, he might have lost anyway, it has to be said. Grumpy did have a larger army, more economy, he had more map control, he had more buildings, just military buildings. But if Melv knew that he was coming from here, he would have defended this ridge so much more. Because this is a huge advantage. Archers, any ranged unit, gets a range and attack bonus by merely being higher than the unit it's targeting. And so combine that with the fact that the Mayans get archer bonus anyway, cheaper archers, he could have easily swarmed this ridge with either skirmishers or archers. Now, if he had swarmed it with skirmishers, he would have countered that initial rush. He would have countered that initial attack. Skirmishers counter skirmishers, especially when they have more attack or higher up. And skirmishers counter hand cannoneers. So I think he could have held the ridge longer. Now, that's not to say I don't think he would have won. However it would have gone down, I don't think he would have won unless Grumpy was really off his game. But I think he could have fought more. And I would suggest that the 2 failings come from not scouting, so no idea where Grumpy was, and then building his military way, way out of the way, even further away than his initial bases from Grumpy. But anyway, there we are. So GrumpyPirate won the overall tournament. Melville and Weirkallen came 2nd, Brassidas came 3rd, Galu came 4th, and there was no 5th place. So that's the outcome of the tournament. So it only leaves me to conclude by saying thank you all, and each and every single one of you who has provided feedback throughout this past year, who has subscribed during this past year. I am eternally grateful to you all. I can't get over in words how astounded I am to have reached 10,000. Now, I appreciate that at the time this video is going out, we're now like 200 away from 12,000. But it doesn't... that's just outstanding. I honestly never thought I'd get anything more than maybe 2,000 or 3,000, owing to maybe people from DAC might come to me just to get information about DAC. But to reach 12,000 and to be told routinely that I'm actually good at the Total War videos is... I never thought that. I never think anyone would want to listen to me drone on for an hour or half an hour. Now, I appreciate these last few Age of Empires games have probably been subpar, and I apologise for that, but I have totally lost the desire to do this. I don't think I could ever do YouTube full time because I do just get bored too easily with certain games. And but I don't think we'd ever make it that large anyway. Here's to hopefully getting to 15,000 so we get a nice round number. But thank you all to everyone who has voted, who has upvoted videos, who has left positive feedback rather than just whiny, moaning internet feedback. Thank you to all of you who just comment and engage, and thank you to all of you who have joined the Steam group and where we've been playing many games. Although we have... the Steam group is a little baffling because we have over 600 members, and yet our peak game playing time we had 16 people. So I think it's more of a like, let's collect a YouTuber by joining their Steam group rather than let's actually play games with them. But anyway, there we are. That's by the by. You're welcome to come and join and just sit in the group and do nothing if you want. It doesn't get you any closer to me by any means, if that's what your aim is. You're just in a group that I am also in. But if you want to actually play games with me, then the group perfectly facilitates that. Most Friday evenings we play games, most Monday evenings, often on a Saturday. I post an announcement. There are always people in the group. Come and play. But so thank you all very much. I am truly indebted to you all. But until we speak again, dear friends, I don't know if there's another video today or not. I haven't decided yet, as I recorded this on Saturday morning. But next week we'll be back to normal. So Angmar, Gondor, Woodland, KD, Stainless, and then I don't know what I'll treat you with next Sunday. I'm not sure yet. So until we speak again, dear friends, Navarna den perimad melanin, Berio irefan en ailflen, and farewell.